We've got the two Pauls on the show, longtime Leafs host Paul Hendrick and NHL historian Paul Patsku. Joe Tilly Sports, coming up! Welcome to the program. Pleased to be joined by the two Pauls here today. First of all, let me introduce you to a native of Noranda, Quebec. He grew up in Ottawa. We just talked about that. He started his career in radio and TV at Sault Ste. Marie, a longtime sports reporter and anchor at CHCH Television, spent 25 years at Leafs TV, the host of Maple Leafs Hockey on TSN and Sportsnet, famous for his tremendous preparation and clever puns. The man they call Henny. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Hendrick. Paul, welcome to the program and Happy New Year, my friend.
It's weird when your contemporaries are becoming grandparents. It's just different because I know mentally we don't feel like we're grandparents, and I'm not yet, but I know you are, and you're a contemporary. So congratulations on that.
You're not a grandparent yet. I'll tell you, it's worth the wait, buddy. It's worth the wait. It really is. my little buddy Leo is pretty amazing. So, Paul, you had 35 years basically covering the Maple Leafs. That's quite a career. A lot of lean years over those times. Can you remember some of the leaner ones? Right, we all remember some of the leaners back in the Harold Ballard days. What are the thoughts that stick out from those rough years? First off.
Well, I think the toughest, Joe, would have been coming out of that lockout in 04-05, where the Maple Leaf team was really heavy laden as far as contracts were concerned. Of course, salary caps coming in. The team was getting older. It was slower. It was economically being dragged down. And you knew there was not going to be any help for a while, regardless of how badly they had played, because most of their top picks had been traded away, at least in the Pat Quinn era early on, to get them in a position to win a Stanley Cup. High risk, high reward, and I have no problem with that. And then with John Ferguson Jr. coming in, the shelf was basically empty, and he had to endure for the time that he was there. And there was no help whatsoever. And really, things didn't start to turn around until the team was able to draft, and they started to draft well consecutively. William Nylander, then Mitch Marner, and then, of course, Austin. And the year in question, 2015, 2016, that season to finish dead last, which is not easy to do because you've got to play well enough to lose, keep your fans entertained at the same time. But it was well worth it to pick up Austin. And now here they are in a position, I think, to compete for a Stanley Cup. And we'll see how things go in about 4 or 5 months' time, see where they're at. But those lean years where I think they missed the postseason 8 of 9 years prior to the lockout season where they made it in 2013, it was awfully bleak.
Yeah, those were really, really definitely some ugly times. Now you've had a lot of really a lot of fun moments covering the Leafs. I mean, there was we had the period of time when Pat Burns was running the show, and in 92, 93 right. they did pretty well, and then once again in 2001, 2002 under Pat Quinn, you touched on that a little bit. To get a couple of times there, if it wasn't for those, if it wasn't for a non-call against Gretzky maybe in 93. If it wasn't for maybe the Gary Roberts injury in 2001, 2002, those Maple Leafs teams might have gone a little bit further, if not all the way. What are your thoughts about those years?
Well, you totally agree. And you think back to the 90s teams in that specific year in 93 and the non-call, Joe, and you talk to players on the Maple Leafs, no ifs and buts, candies and nuts. I agree with that. But the opportunity to have played the Montreal Canadiens that year, uh, Toronto could very well have been the last
Oof,
Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup because they matched up personnel wise so well against that Montreal Hockey Club. The Leafs to a conference final in the spring of 1999. I'm going to remember that because of just how poor they were the year before. But you get a goaltender in Cujo and a few other additions to that team, and of course Pat Quinn's first year with the team, and he just had the ears pinned back and let those guys fly. It was just fun transitional hockey. And again, they had the great goaltending, much as Pat Burns's teams did with Felix. So that I will remember. And that those teams in the early 2000s as well. Always contending for a cup. And the disappointing time would have been, the club, of course, in that magical trade deadline, picking up a slew of talented players, veterans, mind you, and Doug Gilmour, and Doug not lasting 4.5 minutes into a game at Calgary, which would have allowed him to make a incredible comeback with the Maple Leafs at Air Canada Centre on the Monday. I think this was the Saturday or
right.
Friday in Calgary, and it never happened. That was a disappointment to me. But I think, in '02 as well, they were just such a banged up team. And you mentioned that, but I mean, Sundin, Tucker, and go Travis Green. I can go on. And that team against Carolina simply ran out of gas. And I don't know if they'd have been a match for the Detroit Red Wings that year, but those teams were very much contending hockey clubs.
Do you have a favorite moment from any of those years? Do you have, is there a time that sticks out for you? Is there a moment that sticks out for you?
Yeah, I think the night Matt Sundin uh, recorded his 1,000th point, and being able to be on the ice with him and knowing full well that there's one thing Matt hates talking about, and that's himself. But
Hmm.
how do you avoid talking about him in such a great moment? But you've got to play for the house as well. And I remember asking him just what it was like to play with all those players in his, at that point, 12 plus seasons with the Toronto Maple Leafs, what it had meant to him. And he was able to share on some of the names that he'd had as teammates. And of course, asking him what it meant to accomplish the feat on home ice before the great fans at Toronto. And that ear to ear grin. I mean, you could have fit two popsicle sticks side by each and still had room in Matt's mouth because he was just so happy for the hockey fans, so happy for the team. Of course, happy for himself, but in terms of priorities, he was way down the list. And I'll never forget. You just think, I'm on the ice with Matt Sundin in this moment. Thank you, God. It's
No
just,
kidding.
what an opportunity, what a privilege, and it's a moment I'll never forget.
That was no question a great moment. It had to be the career
Yeah,
highlight, right? The career highlight.
I would think
And
he was
Matt
the
was
game's
always
first,
such a
second,
humble
and
guy.
third. Yeah, and humble.
Yes, I remember that.
And so he was the game's first, second, and third star. I mean, Mark Askin, our producer, picked the stars and nailed it on that particular night. There was no need for anyone else to be coming out to wave his stick to the fans. And normally the fans are leaving. There are still a few in the lower bowl and upper bowl who are around for that. The whole rink stayed for that.
Yeah, that was. I remember. I recall. I remember the first, second, and third star. Great move. Just an absolute great move.
Yeah.
And yeah, a beautiful, wonderful night. Now, is there like now on the other end of the spectrum? Is there like a crazy time that you remember, like an interview that you did with the Leafs that was when things got a little bit sideways, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and I'm reminded of it every now and then, even in Nashville, by fans going by or driving in Mississauga a couple of years ago, and a guy pulls his window down, recognizes me, and brings this up. And we're probably 12 years after the fact, but it involved goaltender Andrew Raycroft in his first year with the Maple Leafs, and he'd won his eighth or ninth game, and we're only into November. I mean, he set
Well, yeah.
set or tied a club record, I think, that year with 37 victories. I think it was that year. But anyway, I just said to him, and remembering him in Boston the year before, he had a hamstring pull, he had an ankle sprain, things just didn't go right. And I just said, how great it must be, along those lines. I'm paraphrasing in terms of a change of scenery, to change things for you and get you back to where you knew you would and could get back to, and something like. So this is national audience, center
Right.
ice, not just the house. This is the network. He looks at me and says, "Well, thanks for bringing that up again," and skates off the ice. So I just
Wow.
politely, not say anything. Mark Askin's in my ear going, "What the hell is that all about?" And I just, I've got the talk back and I just said, "I haven't a clue." So the next day is a day off. And it's embarrassing. The next day is a day off. The day after that, they're practicing in Etobicoke Lions Lakeshore Arena, and I make a beeline for him. And I people cleared out. I just go, "What was that all about? Like seriously, what was that all about?" And he said, "Oh, I sort of mistook what you were asking for." I said, "Yeah," but he never apologized. Never
No.
apologized. But I did find out that Sundin talked to him and said, "You don't treat that guy like that." I mean, forgive and forget, but I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. I just thought it was classless, absolutely classless.
Yeah, and things kind of unfolded for him after that, didn't they, that season? And things got
Yeah.
unfolded entirely as it turned out. Okay, so um, we got another an interview here that you did. It was at the NHL Prospects event at Coca-Cola Field and Buffalo. Do you recall that? That was a big hit out, right?
Oh,
You and Bob McGill
Oh,
were talking
I
in
think
the
I'm okay.
diamond, and you
Oh,
took a
that's
ball.
right,
Here we
Jake.
go. Oh,
Yeah, did that cut you right in the head?
It caught me
okay.
on the hot top hat. Spirit, and that's
Yeah.
certainly why these
So
guys
do
all.
you recall that incident,
Oh,
Paul? And did that hurt as much as it looked like it
I think
did?
I'm okay.
I think
Oh, that's all right,
okay.
Jake.
it hurt.
Yeah,
Now
yeah, it had to hurt.
here's what's going on. That's the Austin Matthews draft. It's the Thursday afternoon before the draft
Yeah,
on Friday. Top prospects go down. I forget Coca-Cola Field or whatever it was called
yeah,
then,
yeah,
to
yeah.
take batting practice. And anyway, the baby Buffalo Bisons are out playing hit and whatever. They're down the first base line, and that was a foul tip, probably from about 100 feet away. And Bob, I could see out of the corner of his eyes. Anyway, Nicole Burns, our producer, just said, "Okay, let's start that again." And I said, "No, let's keep it going. Are you kidding me? This is going in the show." And sure enough, that night it made Fox bloopers top 10. But
Oh
I
yeah,
was concerned in terms of a concussion and whatnot. But
yeah.
Bob and I and a few others, we went to TGIF's Suburban Buffalo and drank a bunch of margaritas, and I was really good to go the next day.
You're absolutely fine. Yeah, because I always wondered about like that. Did that sting as much as I mean? I've been hit by a baseball before. It's not. It doesn't feel good.
No,
Yeah, no, it
no.
doesn't.
Unfortunately, I had my
Yeah.
hair to break its impact.
Okay, so we get another little bit here. We found that this is actually from Paul Patsku, who's going to be joining us shortly. It was from the makeover of Paul Hendrick, the Henny makeover. You dehenitized, I think they called it. There was a Pimp My
Yep.
Hair.
Right.
Jeff O'Neill was in on it, and Jody Vance, of course, was in on it as well. Uh, so what was happening here at this particular time? There's Jody.
Yeah, and Odog in there as well. And Jeff was always chirping my hair that it was too much like Leave It to Beaver or My Three Sons, and we had to get it up into the current decade. I mean, you know Odog's sense of humor. So uh, anyway, Jody jumped all over this, and we did the transformation of Pimp My
Uh-huh.
Hair. And we had to get it done in a certain amount of time because Odog had lunch booked with Sundin over at Harbor 60. But look at
Right.
Jeff. Look how thin he is there.
No kidding. They listen. He's a different cat, isn't he? I mean,
Yeah,
he was still playing there.
he scored 19 goals. I think that was his last season in the National Hockey
Yeah.
League, 18 or 19 goals. Always a goal scorer. I'll remember Odog with the black eye in '02 and just how hard he worked and dug to help Carolina get to the Stanley Cup final. Without a doubt, one of the funniest, driest wits I have ever met. Wade Belak is in amongst that group as well, but the Odog certainly a big part of that. Just an absolute blast to have worked with him in the time he was with the Maple Leafs, and back then getting a chance to fly on the charter before we were ceremoniously ushered off by Lou Lamoriello, and Lou came on board to take charge.
Now tell me, it was a lot of fun. I'm sure you guys had a lot of great times through your careers as host of the Maple Leafs. What was it that prompted you to call it a career, Paul? What was it that made the decision that it was time, or was the decision made for you? I mean, at CTV, for example, corporate structure, things change.
Mhm.
The corporation comes in, and the official word is that we were retiring, but the fact of the matter was there was no more sports at CTV. So
Right.
so yeah, right.
Yeah,
So how
no,
how do how are things come down at Maple Leafs Television, Maple Leafs? Yeah.
yeah, I had an opportunity to come back for one year. I only wanted to come back for the half year to the end of the current season to take us, through to the end of December. In fact, on this particular day would have been the last day. They thought that might have been a little too complicated as they were getting budget set and not knowing what they were going into in terms of COVID. Certainly, the turning impact, though, just my wife's health, and she's undergone a couple of challenges over the course of the last 5 years, and the most recent one was September 2019, and I just thought I'm going to get through this current season, but I've had enough. You know, uh, Water under the bridge that if I'm to hang it up and I'm good to go. And I'd rather spend a lot of my time instead of traveling around the continent in all of that, that I'd rather spend time with her and we with each other. And that was the turning point. So I had a good idea in the fall of 2019 that that was going to be my last year. Little did I realize that we'd run into a COVID pandemic in mid-March and go on from there. So a couple of things. My wife's health, COVID, and of course, the opportunity to just leave on that note were the turning factors. But more of a personal note than anything. Would I have liked to have come back? Yep. The fact that I'm not there, I'm certainly enjoying this part of my life and looking forward to watching hockey, albeit I will miss some of it, but certainly not the grind that was all the travel that was involved with it at this stage, and certainly enjoying my time with Alicia.
Right. I was going to ask you how is Alicia now? I did remember
Good.
her. She had cancer, and yeah. Oh, that's great to
Yeah.
hear. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, she's
Yeah.
doing well. She is a role model in so many ways, and we're just grateful for medicine. We're grateful for the fine medical help in this country, and blessed for all we have. And of course, with her ability to battle and willpower, she's a role model for a lot of what I'd like to be.
And Alicia's a doctor, is she not?
An infectious disease physician, and it'd be kind of
Wow.
like, if the Leafs got to the Stanley Cup this year and then I'm sitting back watching it, kind of like on the sidelines and not being able to participate in the full method that I would have previously been used to. I know during SARS she was on the front lines, and infectious diseases is such a prevalent field these days, and she was very much a part of it. And she's on medical leave right now and watching from the sidelines, but I know that hasn't been easy for her.
Well, our prayers are with both you guys, and it sounds like things have, you know, taken a turn for the better for her, and that's awesome.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's great to hear. Um, Another thing we haven't brought up yet, but you have mentioned, we before we got on the air, we were talking a little bit of football, and I know that you also covered football. You did the OUA on CHCH, and do you recall some good moments from the gridiron as well?
Tremendous memories. And what the funny part about all of it now, Joe, especially on the street or in hockey arenas, I get to run into former athletes, basketball and football, mostly, who are with their kids. And there was a quarterback who went to Turner Secondary, I believe, up in Brampton, and he was with his son who was about 11 or 12. And he came up to me, and the kid said, "My dad wants me to ask you how good an athlete he was. It was kind of funny. And this quarterback was a third string quarterback on those great Western Mustang teams. But
Right.
it's coincident. Coincidentally, you ask. We just lost former U of T head coach Bob Lako, Hal's son, just a couple of days ago, and of course, Bob resurrected that varsity football team in the early 90s, 93, 94, to win the Vanier Cup, and what a tremendous gentleman he was. But, you know, I just think back to the competitive games, and every Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, an opportunity to hop in the car with guys like Neil Lumsden, Wes Hicks, Brian Henny, whether it be basketball or football, and get an opportunity to cover Canadian University athletics. It's a time I'll never forget. It was 17 years of magic for me, and getting an opportunity to go to all these schools. And I was never a big Western fan growing up, but my daughter played lacrosse at Western, and it just felt different to cheer on the purple because they just dominate in so many sports. And I was a Western resurrected Mustang lacrosse fan, with her participating for those great teams as well. But the basketball and jammed arenas at Cops Coliseum, I know we moved into there for some of the big championships in basketball, and over to Skydome for football, and having 15 to 17,000 fans to watch a Laurier Western game, or Guelph and Western as it was in 1992. Moments I'll never forget.
Those were some great times. Well, I think it's time to bring in our other Paul, Paul Patsku. Paul, of course, he's an NHL historian,
Mm-hmm.
archivist. He's got one of the best video libraries ever. He supplies a lot of the video we saw earlier today of Mr. Hendrick that was provided by Paul. Man responsible for all the great video that we have in the program week to week. He's a walking, talking encyclopedia of all that is hockey. From the very beginning, the legends who paved the way. You want to talk hockey, Paul Pasco is your guy. Paul, welcome to the program, buddy. It's good to have you on the program instead of just behind the scenes, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a pleasure. That's good.
So I want to get right into your book because you got a brand new book, which actually a revamped book. It's called 100 Things Maple Leaf Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. So let's talk about the book a little bit, Paul. I know you said you mentioned to me it has been revamped. What are some? Just give me a couple of things that as a Maple Leaf fan I have to know or do before I die.
Well, the title may not be representative of what's really in the book because we did it 5 years ago with Mike Leonetti, and unfortunately, Mike passed away the year after that. And so Triumph Publishing came and said they wanted to reissue the book with changes, things that happened the last 5 years. They wanted about 5 new stories, but I felt I had to do more, so I did about 10, 15 new stories and revamped some of the other ones. So things that have happened in the last 5 years were included. And I've also added things that, see, what I wanted to do with the book was write things different than other books, things that people didn't know about, historical things, things like, the astronaut,
Hatfield.
Hatfield there. Yeah, that's right. He came and said that his family had heard a rumor that his grandfather was a Leaf trainer back in the 30s. Well, we know Tim Daly was a trainer, but when you do some research, you find out that he was the physical education PT trainer for the team and a real tubby type of a guy. And when that information presented to Mr. Hatfield, he loved it because it just showed that his family was a Leaf since 1930s, and you know how much of a Leaf fan he is now. So it's nice to be able to do research like that and find things that you didn't know about.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in the book. We want to know how we can get a copy first of all.
Well, probably in the bookstores, but who goes in bookstores nowadays with this COVID thing?
Yeah.
Amazon has it. You can just order from them. That's simply to do that. Yeah.
Okay, Paul. I know that you and Henny go back a little ways here, and I wanted to maybe you can give us some insight in one of your favorite Henny stories.
Well, I don't have too many. He was excellent. Like there's nothing he did that you can criticize. I used to be in the truck sometimes, courtesy of Mark Askin. Of course, you could hear all the background stuff, and he would give instructions to Paul, and he would do his pregame thing. And we're going back a long ways. When I was working with Leafs TV, and we did the classic games, so I was lucky to be able to get behind the scenes for a lot of those things. But no real stories that I can think of that. No, he was just a gentleman all the time. He hasn't changed a bit.
Yeah, that
It's
he
it's
is. That
interesting.
he is.
It's interesting, Paul, to get the privilege to go in the truck and hear Mark ask, and there were times, Joe, where things are happening so quick between director, producer, tape editor in the back in terms of a specific play, and wondering whether that puck went off a stick on the way in, and you couldn't tell. We had such great coordination back there, and Mark would find out from Craig McDonald, who was running the tape, it went off player X over to here and into there, relay it word for word to Joe Bowen and Harry Neal, and they wouldn't paraphrase. They would actually say exactly what Mark had told them on the fly, and it was immediate. And a credit to Mark, who easily could have been on air if he'd elected to. His knowledge of the game and his ability to talk, and he likes to talk. There's a reason why John Shannon's on air, a very similar situation as well. But the coordination behind the scenes with a guy like Mark, we knew we were in great shape. And to have Paul in the truck to see that team go to work and do what they do with Jacques Primo as our director as well, and to have it relayed as seamlessly as it was, quite amazing, and a lot of things that people at home just never got a chance to see.
Yeah, and people should get
Yeah,
a
you get a
chance
chance.
because
Sorry.
it's all timing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hilarious too because you know how Harry knew how funny he was, and with Joe, and on stoppages, and you can hear it in the truck. You couldn't hear it on air, but some of the jokes that Harry would be telling were pretty funny. So it's just an enjoyable experience. Yeah.
And not necessarily for all audiences, maybe, right?
No, no. Where the camera was
Yeah, but
focusing during stoppages either.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, the professional team, though. I mean, it must be fun to work with with so many pros, eh? Henny and Paul.
Joe, I'll remember a time where we were in Pittsburgh. It was back to back, and this was at a time where we were no longer. No, we weren't on the charter. That's why. So we had to fly back the next day, and because of weather in Toronto, our flights kept getting delayed. And I think the Panthers were playing the next night in Toronto. We literally got to the rink. I know Joe and I got to the rink, and there was a bunch of us in different taxis and cars. We didn't get to the rink till about 20 after 6. In fact, the teams were just about to come out for the pregame warm-up. And again, with Mark's execution and the rest of us who were so comfortable working with each other, the game went to air seamlessly. But boy, oh boy, there was a lot of watch looking on at the airport, waiting for that Air Canada flight regional jet to come in from Toronto and finally get us back. And not a moment too soon. In fact, 48 minutes before the actual drop of the puck. But it got to air and no one ever knew about it.
Well, that is phenomenal. Yeah, yeah. I know that back in the day when I was doing my sportscast, and Vic will vouch for this, our producer. It was
Yeah.
a lot of times it was just barely making it to the studio in time. My issue was I always wanted to have the last, I wanted to have the last update, the last, make sure there's nothing else going on, that I hadn't missed anything. And one time I'm on the phone talking to the producer, and I'm putting on my microphone at the same time that I'm talking to the producer, and I'm up in about 30 seconds, right? And then I'm making a few final changes to the lineup and everything else, and I put down the phone. And the phone, it's one of those squiggly, long, curly hue phone cords. It's stuck to the microphone, and I can't get it off. so, so Bill says, "Well, here's Joe," and I'm at that time I'm still trying to get the mic off the phone cord, and
Yeah.
Bill Hutchison said, "Well, here's Joe at the Spurs. Bill, Joe, you having a hard time there?" I says, "Yeah, Bill, I think might need your help." So Bill and I both worked on the phone cord and the microphone for the next 30 seconds or so till we finally got it untangled. But that's the kind of stuff that happens when you're working last minute like that, and you're trying to get on the last bit of news in before the show starts. I want to just, you guys, we got the NHL season coming up in less than 2 weeks now, COVID permitting. The Leafs are going to be playing in an all Canadian division. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Henny?
I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing for the Leafs. It's going to be good not to see Boston for a while, although this might be a good season to see Boston a lot. That said, anytime you get an opportunity to play each other 9 to 10 times, I think only good can come from it. And I think this Leaf team is about to turn the corner. That trio of three, Nylander, Austin, and Mitch, now into their fifth year together. They've been through a lot of thin, and I think are ready to take on the thick and enjoy the success that goes with it. I like the defense and the depth they have. I know they lost Tyson Barrie, but they got two other right-handed shots in Brody and Bogosian. And the wild card for me is going to be Mikko Lehtinen on the left side, 27 years of age. He's been a pro for about 7 or 8 years over in Europe, either in Finland or in the K. And I think he's going to help a great deal. So I think they've got an idea that they can compete in the long term, but it's going to be a sprint. They've got Frederick Anderson in his contract year, and Frederick finally, I think, for the first time in the 5 years that he's going to have been with this club, has a group in front of him that will be better prepared to play inside the defensive zone. I know I'm a bit of a homer in that regard, but I truly believe that they've got a chance to win this division and get to the NHL Final Four.
Right. And then you're in the Final Four, then it goes by seedings of who remains, right? So, Paul,
Mm-hmm.
Double P, what do you think?
Well, it reminded you of the original 6 days when they used to play each other 14 times. Now they play 9, 10 times. You're going to have better rivalries. You're going to have more friction on the ice. And I think they're playing back to back in some cities. So there's going to be a little bit more lively. Might even be some fights. You never know. So that's
Yeah,
I think we're all looking forward to seeing
maybe.
hockey again. Yeah, that's what we want
Right.
to see. And nice to be all Montreal and Ottawa and all these other rivalries. They're going to have a lot of rivalries out west. There's a lot of Leaf fans out west as well. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it. You know, who they play doesn't really matter anymore as long as they get back.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with Paul. I mean, this is the year they have to do it. I mean, John Tavares not getting any younger, but still a good player. And you've got the other guys. Defense. Yeah, well, have a little bit of doubt. Zach Bogosian, yeah, he's a big defenseman, but bothers me that other teams gave up on him. But sometimes they pick it up when they come to another team. So hopefully he'll be good. Brody's got some offensive skills, so that's also good to see. So, and I like the fact that they got depth as well, and defense from Finland, and of course you got Sandin from the Marlies, and work those guys in. Now I think the backup goaltending is a lot better now too. With
Right.
yeah, so Campbell,
Yeah.
and we had a problem last couple of years with that, and we've got new veterans that came in. Wayne Simmons, I think he'll help. He may not be the same player he was before, but they do not need that aggressiveness. The only thing about Joe Thornton, what I would like, he's 41 years old. He was a great player, but if we'd only shave off that beard, he'd maybe look a little bit younger. And
Yeah,
people and the
and
players
faster.
look at an 80-year-old guy sitting beside them saying, "Is this who's playing with me?" So it might make him lighter on the ice as well. So that's the only thing I can say about Joe Thornton.
Well, the thing is, you might find something valuable if you shave that beard off. There might be something really important in there that he's lost
Well,
years
for
ago.
charity, maybe.
But yeah. So, but I'm looking at the additions, and you mentioned that Brody. Well, he's a left-handed shot, but he's always played the right-hand side. And Bogosian, so they're a team that's definitely got a little more grit, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Travis Boyd, Joe Thornton, Jimmy VC, Joey Anderson, Wayne Simmons. It's definitely got a different look, this team. And if they can win that division, right, that Canadian division, and right now they are the favorites to win the division. I looked at the latest odds, and they've got the Leafs as favored to win that division. Um, so they win the division, then they get reseeded for the 1 to 4 thing, and you never know who. Like for now, they don't have to worry about Tampa now. They don't have to worry about Boston. But as you mentioned, Henny, Boston's not the team. Maybe this is the year you do want to play Boston, but it's definitely a winnable division. They get into that Final Four scenario, and who knows? This could be really cool.
The other guy we haven't mentioned, Paul and Joe, Alex Barbanoff, another veteran like Lettinen from the KHL. And I mean, this guy, these guys are 26, 27 years of age, two-time KHL champion. He's an Olympic gold medalist. You look at Lettinen, a 2019 world champion. He won a world junior in 2014, and he's been to the Olympics as well in 2018. These guys aren't coming over to North America to develop with the Marlies. These guys are coming to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I like that depth. And I think Barbanoff, the plan is that he's going to maybe give them a lot of what Supi Mikheyev gave them as well. So there's just a little more depth, especially in that third line. And you mentioned guys like Boyd and Spezza, and we've got Thornton as well. A little more depth at center as far as the third and fourth lines are concerned. And a lot of those guys can play on the wing as well. So I know I'm optimistic, but I'd have to think that this is the best Leaf team this city has seen in the time that I've covered the hockey club. Maybe not as well balanced as the teams in 93 and 94, but the superstar power up front. And Paul mentioned maybe this year. Well, they've got 4 years and 5 years, with that top five, depending on who you're looking at. So I think the window's about 4 years, but you've got to get it done within the next 4 years, because after that, Austin Matthews is going to be up for free agency, and things are off the books at that time. And it's a long time away. It's a lot of games away. But the pressure's on this group to perform now and over the course of the next few years. But those young guys have some veteran help in that dressing room to help them with those expectations. That's why I like the hiring of Joe, the re-signing of Spezza, and as Paul alluded to, Wayne Simmons, another guy's been around long enough and knows about a lot of big pressure games.
It won't be easy to make this roster, Paul. What do you think?
Well, actually, I want to talk about the coaching because, you bring a player in, and if the coach doesn't want to play them, you have a lot of problems, like it happened last year with Jason Spezza and Barry and all these guys. So I think that Sheldon Keefe, with these new additions, I think that they probably wouldn't do the same thing what Babcock did. He'd probably work them into the lineup and use them better. And that, I think that makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. Babcock was supposed to be a great coach, but I guess he wore his welcome. And, so we haven't mentioned the coaching, but I think that with a new start like that, I think that's going to help the Leafs.
Yeah,
well,
I agree.
A lot has been said about their defense, right? Go ahead, Henny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, just, opening night last year, and Jason Spezza and the Leafs are playing the Ottawa Senators. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Family there. And obviously Babs was there to prove a point. And a couple of months later, Mike was out of a job and Sheldon comes in, and every coach has got a shelf life. And obviously, I guess Babs had reached his. Tremendous coach. His resume speaks for itself. But I know there are certain moves that didn't sit well with that hockey team. And Sheldon was welcome when he came, and certainly isn't that kind of head coach. But I know what Sheldon wants from this team. He wants them to play with more defensive perspective within their own blue line. And this team has proven historically that it doesn't like to play that way. But you've got some defensemen here who can move the puck, TJ Brody being one of them. And they're hoping to minimize their time back there. And so we'll see where it goes. But again, this club's got to be better defensively and play much like a Columbus team did. If it's to finally win a round for the first time in God knows how long, going back 15 years, I guess. But I think Sheldon and his evolution as a coach with this roster and this organization continues to move on, and I think he's capable of getting the job done.
Yeah, they really had a facelift. You know, I could feel a boost once Sheldon took over last year. There was definitely, when as you mentioned, that when a
Mhm.
coach, the shelf life comes up, and you kind of feel it, and it's and the team needed that lift. But defensively, though, I think they've made great strides in this offseason. And when you think about it, one of the problems defensively last year were all the injuries, right? I mean, they if you look at the totality of things, it looked like their defense wasn't strong at all because their defensive numbers were terrible. But remember that Morgan Riley missed 23 games, right?
Mhm.
Dermott missed 14 games. Muzzin missed 16 games. So,
Mhm.
they had a lot of injury problems on the blue line last year, and that's always going to be, the case. If staying healthy is always a really important thing. But when you got guys like, Sandin, and you got guys like, the additions of Brody and Bogosian, it's really going to, it's not going to be easy to make this
No.
list defensive core, and Letman. And, this is going to be a tough defensive core to crack into the lineup. And remember Justin Hall, remember that year when he sat out the whole year. I mean, Justin Hall is going to have a hard time getting into this lineup. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be a much stronger team defensively. Uh, Up front, it has never been a problem. The backup goaltending has been improved. If you look at, and you've added the grit, if you look at the whole complete picture, I really like the Leafs' chances. And so I'm going to take this now into our prediction phase. If you're up for it, I'm going to go as far as to predict that the Leafs, I believe, will make the Stanley Cup final. I think they're going to make the Stanley Cup final. It's really hard to say who they would play because of the reseeding situation that you have. It's not a divisional conferencing anymore. But I got a feeling that it's going to be a Leafs Colorado final, and I'm saying flip a coin for a champion. Henny, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, why not roll the dice and look at it that way? And you look at the top two pairings, Riley, Brody. I think Hall's going to be on that second pairing. Just he can skate and he's a right-handed shot. I'm just, or he's a legit right-handed shot. But then beyond that, you get Sandin, Dermott, Callie Rosen, Liljegren, and Marincin, and they'll battle for those remaining couple of spots. But no, I agree. I think they've got a chance to go that far, and if they do, and if the goaltending is there, if Freddie is there, and boy oh boy, that contract, who knows? Maybe he's signed midway through the season when they at least get a chance to do it, providing the price is right for both sides. They've got a crack to get to the final, and then we'll go from there. I know fans in Calgary and Montreal are thinking, hey, what about us? I know the travel, if you're in Winnipeg, is the best because
Yeah.
you're in between both sides. But I like Toronto's chances to possibly get that far. Yes. Paulie, what about you?
Well, I can't be as optimistic because I'm jaded after all these years since '67, always having these hopes being high. So I don't want to say that they're going to win the cup, although I hope they do. Remember, I remember watching the '67 Stanley Cup, so I go back a ways. Um,
Well, we
yeah,
we
I
all go
think
back that far, Paul.
we
I
do. You
do.
do, eh?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
do.
yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I don't want to be too up because people in Toronto, not everyone, but they tend to overvalue the players that they have.
Hmm.
And we have legitimate superstars in the forwards. And Morgan Riley has to be the player from 2 years ago. I know he's hurt last year, so that you need that number one top defenseman. So if he's that guy from 2 years ago, then we have a really good chance at it. And of course, the goaltending as well. It's just that hopes have gone up too much over last 53 years now.
Hmm.
And, you know, yeah, I'd like to see them win the final. I like to win the cup again. But Freddie has to do it in the playoffs. Simple as that.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
know?
the previous 53
Yeah,
years have nothing to do with this year, Paul. And this
correct.
is, I stand by my comments that I think is the most talented team this city has seen. I mean, just straight up talent. None of them may end up on Legends Row. I'm not saying, but just those top two lines, good heavens. And they've got to be healthy. And I think back to Morgan and a game against Boston in Toronto, late October, and he went hard into the end boards, and he was not the same beyond that. And that game when Edmonton was here, and Morgan hops over the boards, and there's Connor McDavid in full flight. And I remember saying to Big Daddy Bob McGill beside me, "Oh my God, this isn't going to be good." Morgan did not have the ability physically to keep up with a lot of players, especially Connor McDavid. And Twitter, of course, jumps out, "Wow, he got danced," and all of this sort of stuff. Well, that was a Morgan Riley who was nowhere near 100%, and his chances against a Connor McDavid, when healthy, would have been a lot better than we saw in that particular play. But again, Paul, your doubts are legit because we've been promised a lot in the past, but I really think this is a good hockey club, and I like the defense on D. Is it better than other Ds? Not necessarily some of them, but you look at Colorado, who's many are predicting to win a cup. Can they win a cup with that goaltending? I don't know. Every team's got its faults and every team's got its strengths, but given Toronto's schedule and staying within Canada, obviously, I think bodes well in a very unusual scenario, but we'll see where they're at come July.
Yeah, and Paul, I think a lot of Maple Leaf fans understand where you're coming from, and we've been like large promise and poor performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, we've seen a lot of teams where we had pretty high expectations, but as Paul mentioned, this particular team has more talent, I believe, offensively for sure, than any Leafs team we've ever seen. And they've
And Morgan Riley's healthy, right? Yeah.
right. It's all about being healthy at the right time for sure, no
Yeah.
question about that. And Freddie Anderson is going to have an awful lot to do with it, whether this team wins or not. And
Yeah.
but sooner or later, it's going to happen that the Leafs are going to break that jinx. It happened with the Cubs. It happened with the Red Sox, right? Sooner or later, the Leafs are going to end that skid, and we're going to be celebrating a Stanley Cup in Toronto, no question about it. And this could be the year. I'm just saying, in my opinion, this really could be the year. And
So
any
we'll have
final
the
thoughts
parade.
on that?
Really cool, boy, right?
Yeah,
We'll still be on the.
yeah.
I got my spot in the parade route. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey,
It may be a virtual parade, but it'll be a parade.
Hey, it might not be a virtual parade. It might not be a virtual
Right.
parade, but I was 10 years old in '67 when they won, and my parents let me have a black and white portable that was in a closet, Viking 14-inch, to watch every game. And I never missed one. The Bob Pulford overtime winner in Game 3 is one of the classics I'll never, ever forget. And then 10 days to 2 weeks after Dave Keon wins the Conn Smythe and the Stanley Cup, I grew up in Noranda. My sister's best friend, Christine Hellman, well, Christine's aunt was married to Dave. And I remember Christine's mom, Huguette, saying to my mom, "Get Paul over here. Dave's coming over for a visit in 10 minutes." And I was on my bike, and I'll never forget him coming around their brown duplex. There's Dave Keon, signed an autograph for me, was gracious. And not long afterwards, I was an altar boy at Dave's father's funeral at Blessed Sacrament Parish up in Noranda. Church packed, the Maple Leafs there. So when I'm biased, there's a reason why I'm biased. I mean, it's just ingrained. You either cheered for Montreal up there or cheered for Toronto. I took the blue and white.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave Keon, in
Yeah.
my book, there's a chapter on Dave Keon returning to the Leafs, and I have to admire his. He stuck up for what he believed, and they finally relented. It was retiring the sweaters. It was you'd hear why the Leafs wouldn't do it. They give all these reasons why, but the sky didn't fall when they finally retired them. It was not that big a deal. So Dave wasn't the only one that wanted those sweaters up retired instead of just honored. The other players did too. So it all worked out well. And so glad that he's back at the Leaf fold. And for best voted number one, best Leaf ever.
Yeah. And we
Yeah,
can
they were
thank the late
terrific.
Jim Gregory. Jim Gregory
Yeah.
was the
Right.
man who facilitated that return. And Davey's family as well, because Dave's not getting any younger, and his legacy will always be there. But at least for his grandchildren, his kids and his grandchildren, I think it was important that Dave came back and took the recognition that was certainly deserving of his. And I'm thrilled. Dave is always a big team guy, but his problems were with Harold Ballard, and legitimately so.
Hmm.
And Dave held on to a grudge for an awfully long time. But thanks to Jim Gregory and, of course, Dave's family, and Dave ultimately as well, he was able to acquiesce and come back within the fold, and we're certainly all glad that he did.
Yeah, we miss
Yeah,
Jim Gregory
sure
as
are.
well. We talk a bit
Yeah.
about him. He
Mhm.
was loved by everyone, and he did everything
Mhm.
for everybody. And sad to lose him, but he doesn't get the credit he should get. But, it's a shame. We're losing a lot of these older players now.
He,
Yeah.
he he built some good Leafs teams, and then Punch came back and kind of messed that up. But
Yeah.
guys, I that's all the time we got for the today's show. I just want to thank you for being on the show. I've got a foursome at Club Link. We might have to wait a couple months to use that, but remember, we're all in this together. We've got some more sports coming up. And listen, guys, Happy New Year's. Thank you for being on the show, and Happy New Year.
Happy
Promotional consideration provided by Clublink. Clublink. One membership, more golf.
Slow play. It's a slippery slope. First you go looking for that lost ball, and then everything goes sideways. There are a lot of golfers on the course. Make certain of your point of entry, look quickly, and move on. Remember, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Find anything, Bob?
Not yet.
Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com. Also, check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round, and go to freescratch.ca for your chance to win a new fabulous prize every day with COSA. Time now for our weekly sports analytics segment. Here's Kwame Bryan.
Hi, my name is Kwame. I'm a developer ambassador here at Algrand, and it's been a great pleasure to be doing the sports analytics over the last few shows. Joe, based on the analytics on the arguably best teams of the Leafs since 1967, what can the Leafs of this year learn from these stats? See you in the next year. Signing off.
All right, so Kwame matched up the Leafs of 92-93 and 2001-2002. We talked about them earlier in the show. Both made it to the Final Four. Both clubs had a nice mixture of talent and grit, much like this year's club. I'd say, guys, just keep your eye on the prize, and you can get this done. Okay, time now for a look at my COSA Swiss pick of the week. Last week, I took Sam's Champ in the seventh race on the final night of racing at Mohawk for the next little while. Sam's Champ sat in the pocket behind Dreamfair Moxie, but couldn't find any room along the rail. And Dreamfair Moxie went on to win it with Ed Helmsley in the buggy, pulled away to win it pretty handily. American Virgin came out hard on the outside to make it interesting. Sam's Champ had to settle for third, so my record is now 1 second, 2 thirds, and a fourth on the year. We'll have to wait a few weeks to get that first W because there is no harness racing currently. Well, the lockdown is on, but a reminder to visit COSA TV on Facebook for all the latest harness racing news, and go to freescratch.ca for your chance to win a fabulous prize every day. Okay. All right, Team Canada could be rolling their way to another gold medal at the World Junior Hockey Championships. Quinton Byfield starting to get it going, had a 6-point game against the Swiss side, the number 2 pick in the draft. Philip Tomasino has been lighting it up for Team Canada. They've got a couple of double-digit wins. Very nice. Lots of balance on this club. Hard for me to see any team beating Canada as they march to the gold medal. Shaky start for the Raptors, to say the least, but no reason to panic just yet, folks. They just have to learn how to hold a lead. They've had double-digit leads in every game so far and let it go. And is it just me, or am I seeing a whole bunch of balance all the way through the NBA? The Lakers have looked average at best. The Clippers got crushed by the Mavericks. I mean, crushed. The Knicks thumped the Bucks. Our man R.J. Barrett's got it going. The Nets lose to Mississauga's Dylan Brooks and the Mavs. I know it's early, but this thing is looking wide open. It's going to be a crazy NBA season. From the NFL, well, the Cleveland Browns had a chance to wrap up a playoff spot, and guess what? They lost to the Jets. Yes, mind you, they were missing some key players due to COVID protocol, but still, you got to beat the Jets. Meanwhile, the Jaguars have clinched last place overall, so they have successfully tanked for Trevor. Trevor Lawrence will be headed to Jacksonville. Tom Brady only needed a half to fire 4 touchdown passes. Buccaneers crushed the Lions to clinch a wild card spot. If Brady were to win a Super Bowl, imagine that, in Tampa, he'd absolutely erase any doubt whatsoever who the greatest quarterback of all time was. He probably has already succeeded in most people's minds of convincing them that he is the best quarterback of all time. But if he wins in Tampa, you just won't be able to argue with that fact. Seahawks dumped the Rams to soap the NFC West crown. The Cowboys stayed alive by thumping the Eagles at 3 straight wins, a chance to gain a playoff spot if they can beat the Giants and Washington loses. And the Bills can clinch the number 2 seed in the AFC East with a win over the Dolphins. Josh Allen has set a club record with 34 touchdown passes. Stephon Diggs has been phenomenal. Best receiver in the NFL this season, folks. I think they can beat anybody but the Chiefs. Well, after some careful consideration, I've decided on my fight of the year, Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. No, it was all the hype and pomp and circumstance that made this a real first-class event. Now, give Fury credit. He showed his tremendous skill as a boxer and then shocked just about everybody by knocking Wilder out and showing that, yes, he's got a little bit of pop in those punches as well. The best punch of the year, Gervonta Davis, who sent Leo Santa Cruz into dreamland with one of the best uppercuts I've ever seen. Top Canadian fighter, Custio Clayton, who got robbed of a win over Sergey Lipinets for the IBF title. They called it a draw. The War Machine from Dartmouth will definitely take the rematch. Custio Clayton, an up-and-coming fighter to watch for. And a reminder to watch Joe Tilley Sports on YouTube. You don't want to miss the latest news. We got it all for you. We're going to close with a look at the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, they're business associates, trusted, all-around great folks. I highly recommend them all. And thanks once again to the 2 Pauls, Hendricks and Pasco. Order the 100 things Maple Leaf fans should know and do before they die today. And thank you for watching the show. We'll see you next week. And once again, Happy New Year. The Joe Tilley Show is available on the Barn Burner Network on Zingo TV. Download both the Barn Burner and Zingo TV apps from their respective iOS and Android app stores. Both apps are free. Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku, and Roku sticks.
Get Aldo at Remax Crossroads. Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit www.getaldo.com to find out what next-level real estate looks like. RS Demolition and Excavation has extensive experience with complete teardowns and interior strip-outs. Looking to build a custom home? RS Excavating Services has the experience you need to build in established neighborhoods. For the highest level of quality and cost-efficient results, we provide innovative demolition solutions completed on time and on budget while ensuring our number 1 priority, safety. Call 647-852-3006 for an estimate or visit rsdemolition.ca. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. The Painting Pros. Want to freshen up a single room, change the appearance of your entire home, update the look of an older property, or completely transform your building? Go with the pros. Our fully insured team is skilled in surface preparation, selection of the proper finishes, as well as the application of the selected paint coatings. The perfect finish for your home or business. Call the Painting Pros, 289-830-2331, or visit thepaintingpros.ca.
Now look what's happening in the Middle East until they come down from the sky.